If you just bought a brand new road bike, well, congratulations and welcome to the world of cycling. There's a lot to look forward to. In this video, with the help of this lovely and brand new Kinesis R1 road bike, I'm going to go through the essential top tips for setting your bike up and helping you get the most out of your new bike. From tyre pressure to fitting your new pedals and getting the saddle height right. We'll go through all the things you need to know to get your bike ready for that first ride. And we'll do it on this bike, and then later in the video, we'll go for first ride and see how this bike performs. Now this video really applies if you're buying a bike online and getting it delivered to your home address in a big box, but thankfully there's not much assembly required with bikes these days. More a case of turning the handlebars around, maybe putting a front wheel in and some few tweaks here and there. You're not building up from scratch, so don't worry, it's not that scary a prospect. Even if you're buying a bike from your local bike shop where you'd expect them to do all this setup for you, it's still good to know how to set your bike up yourself in case you want to make any changes. Saddle height, handlebar, setup, tyre pressure. It's still good to know how to make these changes yourself if you need for any comfort or other reasons that might occur once you get the miles racked up on your new bike. So let's dive in. A quick word on tools. You don't really need many advanced tools. A very simple multi-tool with a few Allen keys will be the very bare minimum to get you up and running. But if you're feeling a bit flush, you could invest in some more advanced tools like the toolkit from Design, which has all the tools you really need to get your bike up and running. Pedal spanner is useful and a good track pump as well, but nothing too crazy expensive. So the first job is to fit some pedals to your bike, and it's very common for road bikes not to be supplied with pedals, and that's simply because there are so many pedals on the market that manufacturers don't often supply pedals. Now if you're buying a bike from a shop, they will fit the pedals you want. There's plenty of choice out there, from simple flat pedals if you want to use trainers, or pedals that you clip into with special shoes and cleats. And these are my preferred pedals, a set of Shimano SPD SL, but there's loads on the market. This is just my personal preference. So maybe have a read around about pedals before you decide what to use. The really important thing to know with pedals is there's a right pedal and a left pedal, and the threads are opposite. And that's really key to know to avoid any problems when you install the pedals. So we'll start with the right pedal on this side of the bike first. And it's a good tip to apply some grease to the threads just to avoid the pedal becoming seized on the crank. So when you buy a new bike later on or you change the pedals, you can get the pedals off again. So plenty of grease available on the market. You might have some at the back of your shed somewhere. So a small dab of grease on the threads. And then we're going to offer it up to the cranks and just use no tools, just my fingers. We're going to locate the pedal into the cranks and just do it up by hand to start with. And then using either a 6mm Allen key, which the pedals are, they've got a small Allen bolt on the back, just simply tighten up. Now you're not trying to do it up really tight, just a little bit. The rotation of the cranks will keep the pedals on the bike, so there's no fear of them coming off. So just do that up a little bit tight. And then we'll spin the bike around and we'll do the left hand pedal, and there's something important to know about these. So the important thing to know about pedals is the threads are opposite. On the right hand pedal is a regular thread. You turn it in a clockwise direction to tighten it up. On the left pedal it's opposite. So you do it anti-clockwise to tighten the pedal. The reason is it simply ensures the pedal won't come off when the crank's going around, so it won't loosen. And just using your fingers, doing it anti-clockwise, and just locate the thread. Now you can either use a Allen key to tighten the pedals, as I mentioned earlier, or you'll see there are two flat sides to the axle, and you can use a 15mm pedal axle like this, or any 15mm spanner, and you can put that on there. So again, not trying to do it really tight, just tight enough so it won't come off, but you can get it off in the future. So that's the pedal fitted. Now we've got the pedals on the bike, we can set the saddle height up. So that's the next job on our list. Getting your saddle height right is crucial to getting the most out of cycling, and also ensuring you don't have any injury problems down the road, literally down the road. The very simple method and a really good starting point is simply with your shoes of preference, whether trainers or cycling shoes, to set the saddle height up so that when you're sitting on a bike with your heel on the pedal, you have your leg pretty much straight. And then when you pull your foot back, so the ball of your foot is over the axle, you'll have a slight bend in your leg. And that slight bend is what you want to aim for in a correct saddle height. And that method, a really simple method, admittedly, is a really good starting point from which you can then make slight adjustments once you're out on the road, going by feel. And feel is a really important consideration when you're setting up saddle height. I'm always tweaking my saddle height, even though I know what it is from many bike fits over the years. I still make tweaks based on how I feel. Another really good method, and one that a lot of people do like, is the Greg LeMond method, devised in the 80s by the first American Tour de France winner. And it's really simply, you measure your inseam from your crutch to the floor with no shoes on, and use a rod or a rule in the crutch, measure that inseam, and then you multiply it by 0.883, and that will give you a fairly good ballpark figure. The number you get, you can then use to set your saddle height up from the center of the bottom bracket to the top of the saddle. Using a tape measure, you simply take that number that the measurement gave you, line up the center of the axle to the top of the saddle, and that is your saddle height. Beyond that, you can look at getting a bike fit, and many bike shops now offer bike fits as part of buying a new bike, so they can get you set up on your new bike, just give you a bit more of a precise measurement. And there are plenty of bike fits. Do a Google search, there's plenty to choose from, and probably one quite close to you, so that's another step. But when you're starting out, if you're new to cycling especially, these two methods will get you pretty close to ideal. Job number 3, once we fit the pedals and got the saddle height right, is to set up the handlebars and the stem. And there's two key things you do here. There's both the rotation of the handlebars, and there's also the height of the stem. As you can see, there's a couple of spaces, 1, 2, 3 spaces, so we can adjust the height of the handlebar. So a lower handlebar height is more aggressive and put you in a more aero position if you want to go racing. A higher position will bring the handlebars closer to you, make it a bit more relaxed and a bit easier if you want a bit more comfort for long distance rides. So when it comes to the rotation of the handlebar, you can clearly go very high or very low, but you want to look for a nice neutral position in the middle. You want ideally this position here to be nice and level, so a nice transition from the center of the handlebars to the hood. And you can sometimes use the end of the bars, make sure they're vertically aligned to get your position. So now we've got the handlebar where we want it, we'll tighten the bolts on the stem faceplate. Now, don't do up one at a time until they're really tight. Do up each bolt a little bit at a time to spread the pressure and make sure that faceplate is evenly aligned by that gap between the stem and the faceplate. Make sure it's even all the way around. And a good way to do that is just go with each bolt in opposite direction. So top right, then bottom left, and up again, and just do each one up a little bit and just keep going. And that will make sure that faceplate is done up correctly on the stem with the load distributed nicely between 4 bolts, so they're all carrying equal amounts of load. Now we can adjust the handlebar height, and it's a really simple job. First, we'll undo the 2 bolts on the back of the stem, and then we'll take this top bolt off. So undo this bolt. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take that stem off. So that comes off. You'll see the carbon fibre steerer tube. That's a steerer tube attached to the fork. There's a bolt inside it, and you can take the spacers off. Underneath that top cap is the top headset bearing. There's 2 bearings in this frame, one there and one above the fork, which the fork spins on. So I'm going to remove one. So I'm lowering the stem a little bit, make it a bit more aggressive, to suit my preference. Put those spacers back on, and then just do this up by hand. So what this bolt does is essentially pull the fork and the stem together, preloads the bearings in the frame, removes any play, and gives you that nice setup you want in your road bike. So we'll just tighten it up, not too tight, just pinch it up. And now a really important step before we tighten those 2 bolts is to apply the front brake and just gently rock the bike back and forth. And if you feel any play, any knocking in the front end, which I can, we'll tighten that bolt a little bit more, maybe half turn, and then do the front brake test again. There's no play. That is tight enough. The bearings are preloaded. That's as tight as you need to go. And then it's simply a case of lining the stem up with a handlebar, which you can do like so, and then just tighten these 2 bolts up using the 4mm Allen key. And again, like the faceplate, don't do one bolt up really tight and then do the next one. Half turn on each one and just keep going until the stem is tight. Now, if you're really feeling like you want to invest in proper tools, you can get a torque wrench, and that will give you the recommended setting, because you'll see here it says 5.2 Newton meters. That's how much torque the company recommends that bolt needs to keep it tight. But if you don't have a torque wrench, because they're an expensive investment, if you're new to cycling, you spend all your money on your new bike, just be sensible, don't do it really tight. You're not trying to break the bolt, which can happen if you do it too tight. So just pinch it up until it's tight. And one test I like to do, put the front wheel between your legs, give it a bit of a twist, feel tight, that's perfect. On to the next job. Now we are nearly there. We had pedals fitted, we've got a saddle height right, and we've got a stem and handlebar all ready to go. All we need to do is inflate our tyres to the correct pressure. So for this you need a pump, a mini pump would do, but I've got this lovely Lezyne digital track pump, which makes it really easy to get the right pressure with very little effort. So how do you go about choosing the right pressure? Well, it is a bit of a minefield, to be honest. Generally speaking, the wider the tyre, the lower the pressure, and there's greater understanding these days of the benefits of lower pressures for providing more comfort and actually being faster rolling on rough roads than very high pressure tyres. Now these are quite wide tyres, 30mm wide, so much wider than 23 or 25 you get in a road race bike. And they actually have a recommended range on the sidewall, so it says 50 to 80 psi. So that's a good starting point if you want to follow that. There's plenty of reading material online and some good guides. One of my favourites is actually an app on your smartphone. Now, who doesn't love an app? But it's given me really good settings that I've been using for the last few years. And you put in your weight, the weight of the bike, the tyre size, and it gives you front and rear pressures. So lower pressure at the front, more pressure at the back, which makes sense because more of your weight's over the back of the bike. And it's saying for this bike, 55 psi in the front and 57 in the back. So that's what I'm going to do. I do recommend you check out this app. I'll put a link in the description down below, because generally speaking, many recommended settings are too high really. But you do need to try different pressures. Don't be afraid to experiment really. If you're feeling like it's giving you too much feedback from the rough roads, go a bit lower. So don't be afraid to try lower pressures and see how it feels. So we're going to inflate tyres, and that is our last job. And then we can go for a ride and see how the bike performs. Now we're out in the country lanes, which doesn't take too long for me, to be honest. We can talk about how the bike rides and performs. And the first impression is just how nice it feels. And I mean, it's really smooth, got a good blend of stiffness, but you've got the wide tyres giving you the comfort on the rough roads, especially at the low pressures I'm running on. I'm trucking along here at a good old speed. Feels good, feels smooth. And straight away I can feel that stiffness from the alloy frame in terms of power transfer. So give me a very immediate responses through the pedals. The SRAM Apex 1x group set give me a good range of gears, high and low. And I've not really noticed any massive gaps between the sprockets. Going to throw it into some corners, see how the geometry handles. Oh, nice sweeping left-hander here. Straight into a right-hander. Oh, it feels so good. Very measured. The steering is on the slow side. They're not twitchy, and I've got these 30mm wide tyres on the bike, which are doing a really good job of damping down all the bumps and vibrations and impacts on some of the rougher roads. The handling works extremely well on this bike. Got quite relaxed geometry, so it's not too twitchy like a race bike. Got a nice short stem and a wide handlebar, which gives it good cornering abilities. But it's got a nice measured balance to it, very predictable in the corners, doesn't do anything erratic or unexpected, just very calm and neutral. And then you've got the aluminium frame giving that really crisp and direct feeling through the pedals, very good power transfer. Okay, some cheeky gravel coming up. Although it's not a gravel bike, the company has a G2 for more gravel orientated riding, but still with 30mm wide Schwalbe G1 tyres, this stuff is just absolutely fine for it. And where it's on the road, geometry gives like good stability. It's the same true here. Feels very settled on a gravel surface. A few bumps, but it's not very loose. And the bike just feels really planted. So if you want to do a bit of light gravel, canal towpath, it could definitely handle it. And this is where wide tyres really open up your horizons when it comes to riding. You'd have to be a brave person to do this on a road race bike. But on this sort of bike, with these wide tyres, yeah, it's fine. It handles it really well. So for pacey but not racy rides, which I do most of the time, this bike seems to be perfect. So first impressions then are very favourable. It's got a very nice ride quality to it. It's got good smoothness. It's got good responsiveness. And the weight's on the right side. It's got a good set of components. Good brakes, gears, tyres. All come together very nicely. Okay, I think that's a good place to wrap up this video. If you have any more questions about setting up your bike or even this Kinesis R1 that I'm riding here, don't hesitate to ask in the comment section below. While you're down there, make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed watching it, and also consider subscribing to my channel for more tech content and reviews, and a full review of this Kinesis R1 coming up in a few weeks' time, so make sure you stick around for that. That's all for now. Thank you for watching, stay safe, keep pedaling, and I'll see you all again soon.